should be fixed. Let's see if we get the right title on there. Perfect. Okay. I know it's fixed, but it's like I'm on my channel and it's like, you're playing Magic. Why? Why won't you update? I also have this cool button with free sub. I could subscribe to my channel for free. I feel like that would be weird. Like, can I sub for free to my own channel? Seems suspicious. Oh, you've already subscribed to this broadcaster. Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. Game design. Game design! Apologies for the delay. My cats chose a perfect time to throw up all over the carpet, so that was fun. Just checking up on my Twitters. Oh, the story. Yeah, because game biologist out in the wilds with the deer and pizza delivery sadness outside of the magic circle. The magic circle, but for pizza, right? Alright. Whew. Game biologist has arrived. Hello, game biologist. Thank you so much for joining us today. Yeah, I just got back from BGG yesterday. I flew out Friday evening and stayed for 2 days instead of the usual 4 days that it lasts, plus an extra 2 to 3 days for the tabletop network. So by the time I got there, everyone was like old and grizzled in con years. They're like, I've been here for my whole entire life. It was fun. It was my first time going to BGG Con. Would definitely recommend it. It's much more of a playing convention. You have a small exhibitor floor and then just an enormous room with thousands of people playing games. It's held in Dallas, which is nice because it's usually a little cheaper to fly out to Dallas, and the hotel that it's in, if you get the hotel rates, it's not that bad. I think it's like $130 or something per night, especially if you split with someone. You can do it a lot more reasonably than other conventions. It's in the middle of the country, so a little easier to travel to for some people. Yeah, so it was fun. It was funny, the way that everyone pitches it to me is, oh, I played 40 or 50 or 200 games. It's a great convention for actually playing games instead of working, which I didn't have much formal work lined up, except for live in-person recording of Ludology, which was amazing and super fun to be there with Gil and Scott, so that was really cool. But I played one published game, which was Pictures, which was fun, 3 or 4 prototypes, and then just hung out with people for the rest of the time. I would get sucked into these vortexes. I spent some great time walking around the show floor with people, getting to meet new publishers, so that was fun. Everyone is very accessible there. I don't know, just so many amazingly smart designers in this space. It's so fun just to shoot the shit with them, as it were. And then someone's like, I'm going to get tacos. Like, of course I want to get tacos. Also spent some time talking about the future of design retreats, which is fun because it sounds like I'm probably going to be doing that going forward, being in charge of organizing more of these design retreats, which I'm excited about. I think that it's a great opportunity to test stuff in a more focused manner. So talked a lot about that, met some new contacts who might be working with or co-designing with, so all in all, fun and fabulous. Getting funky today. I haven't been to BGG Con yet. Someday. Look, I'm wearing a hat. Totally wearing a hat because I feel like wearing a hat and not just because my hair is messy. Game Elder says, I get crazy busy at work and home this time of year, so no PAX U, Metatopia, BGG for me. Well, that's sad. Looking forward to Breakout Con in the spring. I was unwittingly within earshot of Zachary Levi when I went last year and didn't find out until afterwards. Huh. Breakout Con is not one that I know of. I'll have to look that up. Toronto, that's fun. A tabletop specific convention in Toronto. That's super cool. I like the, oh sweet, Avery Alder and Elizabeth Chai-Pradikul gonna be the guests of honor. Yeah, I'll definitely have to check that out. I'm gonna post that in the chat actually. So it's definitely one that I would recommend to people not having gone. Yeah, it's a lot with all the conventions that happen throughout the year. I like to do 1 or 2 new ones per year. And then I'm like, oh well, out of the ones that I go to, I'll choose which are the best ones, and still do a reasonable 5 or 6 conventions per year, or 7. Filter out the ones that just aren't that interesting, aren't that fun, but they're all so good. They're all good in different ways. Like Origins this year, I went for the first time, and it was great from a design perspective. Spent a lot of time just hanging out with designers, a little smaller, a little more chill. Very easy to get meetings with publishers, so that was valuable. BGG Con, just being in the one hotel with people, and everyone was working a little less, because usually people are more taking constant pitch meetings or working their booths. Because there was a little less of that, it was easier to connect with people, which was nice. South by Southwest is one that I've been thinking of going to, probably when I have something to push a little bit more. So maybe someday for that. I did do DreamHack one year and decided not to go back for that since it's almost entirely digitally focused. There's a little bit of board game stuff that goes on there, but didn't get a ton of traffic when we did the booth there. So it's like, for what we're doing, not great for business, but it was fun. Like, we spent so much time with other creators and designers because we didn't have as much traffic, and made some great friendships there. So I don't know, they're all so great. I want to do them all. Since Unpub isn't in March next year, Breakout Con might be an option. Nice. Origins is awesome. Yeah, we hung out at Origins. The Midwest is delightfully convenient for cons. Toronto, Indy, Columbus, Chicago, Grand Rapids, Philly are all an easy half drive for me. Oh, nice. Wonderful Glory, subscribe with Twitch Prime. Oh, thanks for the sub. I'm glad you like my hat. This is my Indie Mega Booth hat. Like I said at the beginning of the stream, totally not wearing it because my hair is messy today. But I also I never wear hats. So I'm like, I can wear my hat on stream, and that would be easier than wearing it. Because once you put on a hat for the day, if you're just gonna be out and about all day, you're wearing that hat for the rest of the day because your hair gets messed up by the hat. So this way, I gotta wear my hat, but since I'll just be at home afterwards, I won't have to worry about the consequences of the hat. MD Maverick, subscribe with Twitch Prime. Oh, thank you. I don't know why everyone's subscribing today. Maybe because they have that button there, but I really appreciate that. Thank you. how you wanna, maybe you can come say thank you to everyone. Oh. As soon as I start to get up from my chair, Fezzik is, I think you can see him scurrying back and forth down here. After I got back last night, the cats were very excited about having me. They get stressed out. Phil is a great cat dad, but I don't know if he pets them quite as much as I do. Yeah, you want to make some games? So yeah, we should probably get started designing some games, because I know that's what you all are here for. Totally not for having this cute kitten sit here and be mad. I wonder, he's not a lap cat, but I wonder if I just didn't pay too much attention to him, if he would chill out here for a little bit. He doesn't want me to pick him up. This is his punishment. This is a cuddle punishment. Female just says, I have many, many hats. They protect me from the super bright sunlight. I see functional hats. Functional hats is great for keeping your head warm or having the brim to protect your face. It's very nice. Cat stream, what do you think? Yeah. You want to be a game designer? Maybe. Maybe. No, you want to flee. Flee. All right. Game design. So we had the pitch of, what was it? I think it was Prose versus Khans, or Prose and Khans. Prose and Khans, yeah. Senior Bob, thank you. Khans, felt like that. Thank you for the suggestion, appreciate it. We've been starting the streams off with me working on my designs recently, but I think since we have this great suggestion here for Pros and Cons, we might kick things off with that. I do have this idea. I don't know if it's going to come across great on camera. That I got from a dream last night, as so many great ideas seem to pop up. I don't know if that's weird. Oh, Pros and Cons. Okay. You see, we're going to spell it all different ways, and we're going to come up with ideas based on each of those. Just a matter of time before my house panther arrives and demands my attention to be taken away from screen time. Oh, yes. House panther. Yeah, so let's talk about... I just want to talk about my idea a little bit, because as with any games that come to you in dreams, I don't know if this happens with other people, but I mean, it's cool getting a idea from a dream, but it's just so, first of all, just remembering what happened is tough, and it's illogical, right? Like, I see people moving pieces around on a board. It's like that thing where you give someone a game without the rule book and just dump all the components down, especially one that doesn't have any writing on the board, and you're just trying to figure out where exactly things go. So what I was seeing in my mind's eye is a board kind of like the Luxor board with some sort of a spiral track. Most of the spaces blank, but then certain spaces having landscape or pictures with symbology built into them. So especially this one with the bumpy lines. It's like a mountain, but within the mountain you would see 4 squiggly lines, and the ones that had squiggly lines on them would be the same in some way. And we were taking stacks of kind of chunky rectangular tiles like this. Chunky rectangular tiles of player color. So each player had their own like rectangular tiles, almost like a rectangular biscuit or something. Probably not quite as thick as this and a little longer than it is wide. Because this looks more like a mahjong tile, but thinner than that, more wafer-like. And stacking the tiles onto the places that had symbols and moving things between different sections depended on how they related to each other. So you could move between ones that had the same symbol as long as it had fewer of that symbol. So from 4 squares to 3 squares, for example. But if it's the same color and symbol, you could move, maybe multiples would have 4 squares. They were also kind of transparent, which is interesting. Maybe so you can see the symbols through them because they're about this size to cover up the symbols. So the size would be about similar to the space on the board. Chunky. I'm like, what did I write there? It's supposed to say chunky. Chanky. Chanky. So you'd move your stacks between different spaces, maybe stacking them up over time. Maybe you have to start on the 5s. Or the most symbols, because you can move to, in general, you're moving down through the numbers. And I know using color mechanically is a little tricky, so it'd have to be something, but some proxy for color. So if it was, you could do same color, same number of symbols, and same symbol. And then that's the only way you can move across. Otherwise, you would have to do different color, lower number, and same symbol, or same color, lower number, and different symbol. So you can move from 4 squares to 3 squares as long as they were both green. I think part of the reason for having so much open space is to... I don't know what this game is called. Tile blocker, sure. Part of the reason for having so much open space on the board is making it easy to distinguish the mechanical areas. If every space is full, it gets really hard to read. And then there would be some sort of combat, quote unquote, resolution in phase where you'd get a number of tiles in a stack of differing colors. Maybe, oh shoot, what's that game? Tribes? 5 Tribes? 5 Tribes, oh, shoot, I don't think it's 5 Tribes. Tribes, Dawn of Humanity. Just need to see a picture of the board. I'm thinking of the game that has the tiles that you put out. You can go into the different little bit of area control. Is it Early Civilization? No, that's not it. There's so many, maybe it's Rise of Tribes. There's so many different board games that have tribes. Yeah, it's Rise of Tribes. Sweet, nailed it. Number of tiles in a stack of different colors. Once you reach a certain number of tiles in the stack, you have a fight. and someone wins. Rise of Trust. Because I like the combat system here, because you don't actually go to combat unless you overflow the region, which I think is very thematic and interesting mechanically, and you can do a lot of movement before you actually trigger a combat, which is super cool. Sweet. And then again, in my dream, I had this like sideboard with war markers, some sort of little round tokens, almost like a cube but cylindrical. Cube but cylindrical. War markers, and then different regions for the different colors of captured. Might just be a 2-player game. That's how I was seeing it played in my dream. Yeah, so I'm seeing this kind of abstract game where part of the mechanics is recognizing the symbology on these different spaces and moving things and stacks around between them. Because I'm working on another stacking game, Shoot, Screw, Rush, and just like the stacking of tiles I'm very interested in right now. So yeah, that's my game that has been on my brain since last night when I dreamed it. Cindy Rob says, I briefly wondered what an alternate spelling for prose would be. Prose and Khans, Prose and Khans, Prose and Khans. That might be a little too far off the original intention. Hello, Babacus. Thank you for joining the stream today. Excited to have everybody on board. More compliments for the hat. Thanks. I really appreciate that. Alright. So yeah, thank you for letting me discuss my weird idea that I had come from random dream last night. I'm really interested to have more conversations about that, because it makes me feel weird, but maybe I'm not alone for like, hey, do you just like see people playing board games in your dreams but not existing board games, just completely like how this, and this is very specific, right? It has almost like a roll and move board, but so many blank spaces and different terrain regions. I was seeing it as terrain, or not terrain, not still life, landscape. Like landscape photographs. I guess, again, I was playing that one game, Pictures, so it's just so weird how my brain, unconscious brain, mashes these things up. Like the pictures from Pictures, the photos from Pictures, the game, and the stacking from Shoot, Screw, Rush, and the symbols. I don't know where those came from, but yeah, it's super fun. Alright. Again, such a weird mechanic. I don't know exactly if it would work, or if it would be fun, or what the theme would be, because I feel like it needs an interesting theme to tie it together. Right now it just feels like a war game. Like a very abstract. Which is weird, and not usually the type of game that I make. Domination game. Also abstract strategy. Brain, why are you making these types of games instead of heavily narrative and thematic, which is the other thing I've been working on recently. Bob was like, I do not, you're weird, ew. was like, wait, you do not what? The dreams. Okay. I know it's weird. I'm weird, I admit it. You got me. Athletic prose. Yeah, that's what I was thinking too, because prose... Shoot, is prose short for something? Like, what in the pros and cons? What are pros? Like, things... What does prose mean? Is it short for something? The favorable and unfavorable factors or reasons. Prose, an argument or consideration in favor of something. Or a pro, like a professional. A pro vote. Short for a public relations officer. I want to know what the etymology for pro is. Like, where did that come from? Ooh. Late Latin from Greek from proti. Pros, face to face with, toward, in addition to near. Weird. It seems like it's just been around for a really long time. Yeah, from Pratten, pro, for, and con, from contra, against. Cool. Oh man, this... See, it doesn't say exactly when people started doing that, but they could have been doing it for a long time. That's weird to think that people, for years and years, have been thinking like, for and against. For and against, yeah, it's literally what it breaks down to. Or maybe they used to say for and against, and now they want to make it sound fancier. Alright, brainstorm time. Oh man. Just thinking I need to set up my stream deck. Phil got it for me because he's awesome, and it's just been sitting around gathering dust, which is bad. And also I need a sound effects board. So for like brainstorm time, I want like a chimes sound for brainstorm time. Mind map. Convicts. Professionals versus convicts. I'm gonna do this. Let me see. P's and C's. So cons, like in Star Trek, obviously. Cons, like convicts. So professionals in what? Professionals, convicts, prose, as in opposite of poetry, right? It's poetry and prose. So we can have any combination of this. Prose for, cons, contras, proti and contras. Cons against. Athletic prose, and you have the cons. Cons like conventions? Khans is an American furniture, mattress, and electronics appliance store. Professionals, right? And then I guess pros, like athletes, is short for professionals. Athletes. I feel it's sort of a different thing. Con, see, with two N's. To conduct or direct the steering of a vessel in a verb, the control exercised by one who cons a ship, or Connecticut. Right, with two N's. Controlling a ship, or Connecticut. Connecticut. Pro sports Star Trek. Or maybe all the... It's just teams made up of con clones doing the sports. It's like the old Burt Reynolds prison football movie. Professionals and confidence men. I don't know what confidence man is. I'll have to check that out. Confidence man. Confidence. Or like confidence, like take into your confidence. Confidential. Confidence Men and millions of other books. Hidden History of Wall Street. Cool. It's a good resource. Yeah, so I think it came from Prose and Khans meeting, but the pitch was to come up with it's puns, right? Mostly puns. Also makes me think of a fish curator. And check out what that is all about. Right. Oh, con men and confidence men. Is that what con men means? Interesting. Learning so much today. Convicts. What is this fish? Curator of fishes. Ichthyology. Okay, right, because the picture here is this person with a big sheet of paper talking to some football people. I'm going to have to research some more about that. Thunderstorm sound, of course, for brainstorm. Right. I mean, what am I even thinking? I could just do lightning sounds like we do on the ludology. Thunderstorm sounds. Oh, yeah, other things for cons. Perfect. Cons being Mongolian generals. We can use any combination of these things. Mongolian generals. So maybe it's both? Or versus? Mongolian generals versus Star Trek Khan. Confidence men are the people who pull cons. Interesting. Con men definition. No, I'm typing. I'm off the row. Huh. That is super confidence trick. Oh my gosh, I never stopped to think about where it comes from. A confidence trick. Synonyms include con, confidence game. Confidence scheme is an attempt to defraud a person or group after first gaining their confidence. Huh. That is super cool. Oh my gosh, you learn something every day. So when it's saying confidence men, it means confidence trick. It means con men, but spelled out. It's so clever. The etymology of con man. Con man, someone who does confidence man. Someone who does a con. Is a con man who does a con. Cool. And who does a con trick, which is shortened down to just con. Here we can have professionals versus con men. Sports teams made up of con men. Do we write prose? Prose and Khans. Oh, we should be doing bullets here. Yeah. Prose. What would that be then? Writing. Did I write prose here? Prose. Yeah. Writing stories about confidence tricks. Trying to pull off the best con so you could tell a really cool story about it. Could also be embellishing your con so it makes for a better story. Excellent. There's also Con Academy. I'm running out of space here. I must write smaller. Which is self-directed education, I guess I'd say. Gotta close up my marker here. Drying out. Academy, self-directed education. So the cons, people who attend Con Academy, so it could be generals versus Star Trek Con versus academics. Okay. And then there's cons, Khans. Khan is a surname of German origin. It means small boat in German. We're going for deep cuts here. Like where, whoo. I love the idea of this elaborate game that eventually just ends up being football, the game. But how's this elaborate? Like if you know the origins of the names, like, well, actually, Khan is German for small boats. So we'll be making stories about small boats. Big fish. Fisherman's tales. Again, about elaboration. Keep going back to like elaboration, weaving tales, which is kind of cool. Really sticking into the boats aspect of this, but as a reminder, it's not as important that we're literally coming up with something that would be the name of the game. The idea is to come up with lots of ideas about what the game could be. Professional athletes have to get into tiny boats and race them. It could be professional athletes whose sport is tiny boat rowing. So they're, instead of being a footballer, for example, there's a sport of rowing tiny boats. Okay, next question. Is there a sport about rowing tiny boats? Tiny Google Foo, come to my aid. Tiny boat rowing competition. Rowing is a sport. Okay, but rowing as a sport is mostly you got a bunch of people in a boat. We want like a little boat. Small boats regatta. Okay, seems like we're getting close. Because you can get really small sailboats. My sister used to do sailing and would tell me about the very smallest sailboat. It's called like a a 440 or something. Okay. That's actually super cool. It's a boat that fits in the back of your car. This could be our con. A little tiny baby boat. Boot. Baby boot. Baby boat. Nice. Public relation officer and conman. Yeah, so that's just going to the original one. There we go. What does a public relation officer do? This is PR, right? Yeah. Maybe the con men have their PR reps who have to weave tales. Keep coming back to this, I like it. About how what happened is really not that bad. Maybe spin doctors. Put it in a good light. The public relations officer or chief communication officer or corporate communications officer is the head of communications. Public relations. Prose and Khans might be a little too far. Oh, ooh. Contras. Contra is also... Shoot, I got a couple of things I was going to write down. Contra is a dance. I don't know if it's usually abbreviated to con, but maybe. And then cons is in conventions, right? That's an interesting direction. I like having two things to work from here and going in crazy in both directions. Contradance, conventions. Right. Pros and cons, pros and cons. Pros and cons. Writing cool stories about conventions. A game about a prose was book convention. Good books. Writing convention, maybe? A convention for professional athletes? I wonder what that would look like. I don't know. Are there a lot of sports conventions? It'd be interesting to research. That's a really good question, because like a basketball convention or a football convention, I guess usually that's just the sporting event, right? It's like, where do you go to share your passion about sports? You go to sporting events. Maybe like the World Cup could be thought of as a sport convention. I guess it's interesting because you don't really... You have a lot of... Like, something like soccer, you know, there's a lot of amateurs, semi-professional, lots of different leagues. Like, if you had a soccer convention, you could get people together to learn about soccer technology. Athletic equipment. There's probably something about that. Like running soccer events. Football convention. Okay, coaches. They have one for coaches. The American Football Coaches Association annual convention is the premier networking event for coaches from all around the country. Nashville, 6,000 plus attendees. Okay. But I suppose that's American football. Big Ten Fan Fest presented by Dr. Pepper. There's so many conventions that I don't even know about. Of course, industries are great. That's why convention centers are cool, especially if you get there a little early or stay a little late. They're switching over between the conventions. I used to be in the research industry, and we would do our convention, and right before it there would be the cheerleading convention, and right after it there would be the cow herders convention or whatever. Big at the Indiana Convention Center. Big Ten Fan Fest will be held. It doesn't say what it is though. Okay, we're going down a rabbit hole. We'll come back. We'll bring it back. Oh, no, that's not what I want. Okay. We'll come back from this rabbit hole, I swear. Huh, interesting. Oh, perfect. Oh, this is cool too. Find out how to find out more about weird conventions. I think I've seen there's been a few convention games, but I think you could also do one just about weird conventions. Go to the convention center website. See what they have. Big Ten Fan Fest. Cool. So there's sports. There's sporting conventions. Ooh, although this makes me think of another game idea. Game about running a convention center. So I know there's been games about game conventions that are kind of meta. This would be a pretty straightforward scheduling game. Give slots to all the conventions. Sometimes you can have multiple conventions running at the same time. But weird things can happen with different combos of conventions. Like if you get the anime convention and the insurance convention at the same time, maybe things get weird. Oh, when we were at Shucks, we had Shucks, obviously, Shut Up and Sit Down Expo. And what else did we have? There was a real estate brokers convention, which is pretty fascinating. Certain weekends are more desirable. Or weekends, I guess it could be during the week too, certain times. Desirable. Maybe there's flexibility in how much time you give people. New conventions can give you, let's just say it can be riskier. New conventions are high risk, high rewards. A little bit of randomness there. Cool. It's a cool sidebar idea for cons. Not necessarily the pros versus cons, but idea for a game. Pros and cons. Cons writing war poetry. Well, it's not poetry. Because poetry is the opposite of prose. So it would have to be poems and cons. Yeah. Oh my gosh, do we have that one yet? Yeah. Competitive NaNoWriMo in prison. I love it. It's really interesting. We're talking about the readability of games and what some themes, because of how consistently they are treated within media in general, give us certain expectations of how a game will play out. So the game in particular that we were talking about was Lock Up, about fantasy creatures in jail, forming groups within the jail and fighting against each other. But what ended up being weird about that game was the fact that you never actually escaped the prison. So just knowing that a game is about a prison, it's like, oh, it's a game about prison. The fact that you don't have any opportunities to escape, and at the end of the game you're still in prison, ends up going a little bit against expectations. So it's really interesting how just picking a theme can set expectations. Pros and Khans. RPG where PCs are all former athletes vying to be Chaka Khan's protege. Oh, Chaka Khan. Okay. I like that. Alright, look, we have so many game ideas. Look, for each one of these breakdowns, we have 4 or 5 ideas. Chaka Khan's protege. Prose and Khans. Baron Munchausen-style competitive, elaborate storytelling as ghostwriters of Chaka Khan's memoirs. These are getting awesome and specific, and I love it. Do we have that yet? Did we not do Prose and KHA? I don't think we did that. Trying to figure out how all these things spelled is kind of crazy. Cons. I love just saying this is a game about competitively writing Chaka Khan's memoirs. I feel like that's a selling point people would be into. Crew, the competitive. Okay. Gameologists, I feel like you just know everything. Tiny boat rowing equals sculling. Never heard about sculling before. What? Oh my gosh, this is the best. It could be a game about being in a boat, but specifically an incredibly small boat. A single sculler ready to catch with blades squared. I don't even understand how those words are coming together in that sentence, but it sounds like something I want to make a game about. Tiny boat kayak. Yeah, that's a good point. I'm old. I immediately think of Nicaraguan rebels when I hear Contras. All right, add it to the list. Pros, academic game researchers, and cons, super huge and chaotic game convention focused on open play. Can the players pull anyone into a debate on the subject of the definition of a game? Oh my gosh, I feel like that would make some enemies. And then we'll call it... Well, actually... Is there a game called Well Actually? I feel like not something to be published or put a lot of time into, but just kind of a meta game, joke game thing. There's an Actually show. Actually, the game show where nerds correct nerds. Actually. Alright, you see, this comes back to all of the different ways that you can, the different inspirations for games. So we've talked so far today about games that come from dreams, talking about thematics and a lot of thematical inspirations. This list is great for thematics. Name first design is actually a thing. Or actually. I don't know which one of those would be better. Actually, board game. Cool. There are family events where players meet and greet people and there are activities. Okay, I was like, what is that? This must be relating back to whether there are sports conventions. Yeah. Yeah, I think it seems to be very different. I think conventions have... Conventions have historically been a nerd thing, right? So even before board game conventions, there were work conventions. So that's kind of where it came from. Convention is historically more like a business thing. And if it wasn't, if it was for fun, it was usually fair, an event, like a sporting event, a festival, like World's Fair, right? Yeah, you're a cat. You're very helpful. I'm thinking historically for the history of this idea of convention. Because I don't think conventions have been around forever. I think it's a fairly recent usage for an event that a lot of people who share an interest go to. So look up the actual definition for that, see what that is. Event that people with shared interests attend, usually for several days. So they've had a formal meeting or convention of rulers, etc. from the early 15th century. Etymology is very important for game design. Y'all should be excited about our etymological journey. Okay, cool. Took my girls to a Twins baseball team. Won once. Oh, cool. Okay. For what we call sports conventions. Yeah, perfect. Then you kind of get a little closer to the players as opposed to sports, you know, where you watch the players, you get to interact with the fans, but there isn't flow between those two groups. Say, like, at a convention, there's more of an expectation to be able to interact with professionals, creators, celebrities, instead of just watching them from afar, like a sporting event, TV show, play. So getting to rub elbows, even if it's just to the extent that they're doing signings. you don't really get to talk to people if they're just doing signings, but you're closer to them. You feel like you get to be closer. Shere Khan the tiger from Jungle Book. Sweet. Don't forget trade shows. That's an important distinction. I think conventions and trade shows are pretty similar. I think I use them pretty much interchangeably, at least what I've been discussing here. I'm going back and forth between the insurance convention and something more like a board game convention. So what is the difference between those two? That is a good question to dig into as we go more into the weeds for weird stuff that may eventually be games. I don't know. Versus Shere Khan from the Jungle Book. One of each Khan. I'm sure there's even more there that we're not thinking of right now. So it could just be all... Look, this, we've talked about thematic design, mechanical first design, title first design. Now we're talking about pun first design. It's even more specific than title first design. At least in title first design, you want a title that really captures a feeling or is very unique. In pun first design, I guess I want to say that Abandon All Artichokes is pun first design. Because you stick to the punniness of the name, even if it's not directly clear from the name what it's supposed to be about. Like Prose and Khans, it's about sports teams with all sorts of different cons from media on the team. It's like, that really? That's where you're going with that? It's weird, but okay. Deranged wordplay is very important for game design. Thank you, game biologists. That's what I say. Playing with words gets you things like Abandon All Artichokes. I think convention's just a cooler name than trade show. Pros and cons. Can you find Madeline Kahn, a new profession using skills from characters she's played on TV and in film? Combo of the game of life, IMDb, and slapstick. I love that. That's really cool. I don't even know who that is. Oh. Cool, this can fit under pros and cons as well. Perfect. Yeah. What was I thinking? Condo. Marie Kondo. It has some extra letters. Can we work her in here as well? Does it spark joy? Pros and condos. See, we don't have to stick to the original idea. We can go in a completely different direction. Pros and condos could be writing stories about letting go of what doesn't spark joy. Ooh. No. Here's a good one. Pros and condos. It's like fantasy football. But you're playing as a Marie Kondo, going through the teams and removing members who don't spark joy. Oh my gosh, it's funny. You don't spark joy. Yes, that's it. Close the books. Shut down the show. That's all we need. Pros and condos. Oh my gosh. That's probably too much. You can tell me if that's too much. I'm sure. See, you've gone too far. You need to pull it back. Pull it back. I have no experience playing with words. I feel like that's a lie. What are you talking? No, you're joking. Like, this whole thing was your idea. You're the pun master. Oh man. Shoot. Sidebar. Sorry, this is completely going in another rabbit hole. I need to do badges or emojis for you all. Find out, can I do titles? I want a pun master title for people. Probably for Senior Bob, although you can fight over it maybe and have competitions and get pun master points. That would be fun. Let's see how I do that. Unrelated to game design, but I think it would be great. Prose in conduits. Oh my gosh, jeez. See, but that's the thing. We can, with wordplay, we can push it a little bit because you'll have that subconscious thought of pros and cons. Prose and conduits. So it has... Most things that are sayings that stick with us have a ring to them, have a way when we hear them or we say them, it triggers dopamine in our brains. So even working that in a little bit into a game title can get some of those good feelings. All right, what's pros and conduits? Not pros and conduits. Conduits, I'm thinking electricity, although I know it can be water as well. Okay, conduit's a channel for conveying water or other fluids. Professional sports athletes being washed down a water channel. It can be water, it can be electricity. So, and come back to the prose, double entendre, stories about athletes traveling through the internet tubes. Conduits, you get it? Like, if you have to say do you get it, then no, it's not a good joke, but still. Athletes traveling through the internet tubes. This will be electrical. Okay. Although I guess in the electrical sense, a means of transmitting or distributing. Okay. So that could be like a news conduit, news about sports. Or just keep going, right? Just keep going. Prose and conduits. Methods of transmitting stories. Cool. Whew. All right. Wow. I wasn't sure how this stream was going to work out because still a little tired after my journeys. Still recovering from not sleeping a lot. Very much just go, 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 go. feel pretty good about this. We came up with some fun, weird stuff. Appreciate you all joining me and enjoying, supporting my goof offs and enjoying this goof off session. I hope nobody comes in here thinking that we're going to have a very structured session and come out with a physical prototype for a board game for each show, because usually it's a lot more open-ended, coming up with ideas, but I think that it's a great illustration of the ideation process. And if you follow my techniques, in 3 to 7 weeks, you will be 37% closer to having your own designed board game. I think that these techniques are really great for creative ideas and showing you how, if you ever feel stuck with your designs, you're not sure, either you have a theme and you're not sure what to do with it mechanically, or you have a mechanic and you're not sure what to do with it thematically, or even you just have a title and nothing else, you're not sure where to go from there. This is a great way. Talking with people, working collaboratively, really helps to get those juices flowing. And then also, even if you have something that you've been working on, it can be helpful if you feel stuck, or even if you don't feel stuck and you're like, yeah, it's pretty good, but I wonder what else I could do to it to make it even more interesting. And stuff like this is fun. Think of all these cool game ideas, sports teams of different people related to the word Khan, writing Chaka Khan's memoirs, writing boats, war poetry, elaborate fisherman's tales, writing stories, embellishing your Khan to make you seem like a better villain than you actually are. To make it seem that you're better at villainy than you actually are. Writing stories about conventions, sports conventions. I like this one. Like fantasy football, but you're playing as Marie Kondo, going through the teams and removing members who don't spark joy. Conduits, all the way down to a game about running a convention center, which is probably the closest to being an actual game, a scheduling game. I've heard about different groups working on different scheduling games, and I think that it's something that really hasn't been done. There's a whole space there for different scheduling games that I think could be really cool. I do want to see the difference between a trade show and a convention, though. Oh, trade shows versus conference versus conventions. Right, so you can use either a conference or a convention. Also are usually pretty different. Trade show is industry specific. Conference. Trade show focuses upon vendors and more like a trade show hall. A conference is more about exchange of information. And then a convention is usually, conference is more about membership and a convention is more open. So that's cool to know. Click on this and do some research, because research is great for coming up with new game ideas. Senior Bob says, a coworker was telling me today that the siding on her house was being replaced. I asked her if she was excited about it. These two gems. I'm getting ready to finish up in just a couple of minutes. Gonna cut it a little short today because I have a meeting at 6 p.m. PST. Should show my thing, actually. Been reading this book that was recommended to me by a friend, From Chaos to Creativity, Building a building a productivity system for artists and writers. This is not a sponsored post. I bought this book, and so far it's been pretty helpful for me. So if you're doing a lot of creative projects, this taps into things like the GTG, getting things done system, but from more of an artistic, creative point of view than a tech point of view. Because I think the tech mindset, when I've tried to do agile systems that are meant for tech people, it's been a little bit tricky making that work for a more free-flowing system. So I'm excited about this. One of the things about being a creative who wants to do that professionally, one thing that's important is accountability, and having people in groups to check in about your creative projects can be really cool, which is this stream is a great source of accountability for me. It does make sure once a week I do get ideation and creativity down, but having a few accountability partners can really help with creative work. So that's what my meeting is for. Talking about the book. I've never done like a book accountability club, working through things with a system, but it's highly recommended. So excited to try that out. We'll finish on this note. The excited. I'm replacing the siding on my house. Are you excited about it? That's a good pun. I'll have to add that to my pun memory bank. And Prose and Khans. Prose and Khans is actually really cool on multiple levels. Dang. I feel like that would be an amazing game. I don't even know what the game would be. Might have to do a whole other ideation session just to come up with that, but Prose and Khans, because you wouldn't even have to know that it came from Prose and Khans. Somebody like, wait, it's like Prose and Khans but reversed to be Crows and Pawns. Yeah, if you don't do anything with that title, I might steal it because I love the ring of that, and that sounds really cool. That you could do like some weird abstract game about death. Are crows the death ones, or is that more ravens? You can do one that's you're the crow kingpin and you're using your crow minions as pawns in your game of crow domination. Let's think on and discuss crows and pawns at PAX. I love it. Yeah, let's set up a time to chat about that, because I think, I have no idea what it is, but I like where it's headed. Cool. Follow Corvid. Ooh, research on Twitter for an expert on crow funerals. Oh my gosh, yes. Crow funerals. Corvid research. Sweet. Cool. I think that's about enough for today. As always, thank you for joining me. It's been super fun. Felt really good to get back into this. Wasn't sure if I'd be able to make it through the stream. Again, it was a very active weekend, but I'm glad to have this on Tuesdays. So hopefully I recovered a little bit, but still get into the swing of things. And I like having this, like I said, for accountability. And I hope it's been useful for you as well. I think it's a very important to have some creativity and ideation sources in your day. Thank you to MD Maverick and Wonderful Glory for subbing. Really appreciate you helping to keep the lights on, keep this stream going. As always, if anything in here has inspired you, feel free to take it and run with it. I would love to see more game design ideas inspired by some of the stuff that happens on this show. Catch you again on Thursday. We should be doing our Thursday stream that's just casual gaming. And if not then, I'll be at PAX U in a couple of weeks, so might see you there. Thanks as always. I'm going to sign off for today, and I will see you around the table.